The reason that they searched the seabed in the first place, we're talking about back starting in 2014, was that they
Yeah.
had analyzed these signals from Inmarsat. They developed a theory of what had happened to the plane. They based a search area on that mathematical analysis. They searched it, the plane wasn't there. Now, the way that probability distributions work is that it's kind of like a fried egg, that you have the high concentration in the middle, that's the yolk. And then as you sort of get away from the middle, the probability gets less and less and less, right? Like imagine throwing like your watch out your window and into your backyard, and you just kind of throw it over your shoulder so you don't know where it is. Now, where is that? And it's probably in the middle of your backyard. Maybe it's a little bit off to the side of your backyard. Maybe the further you go, it's not, it's almost certainly not 10 miles away, but it might be, the further away you get, the less likely it is. And so basically they have searched the best part of the probability distribution, and the further they go out, the less the more meager the probability area is. And so
Mm.
even if you assume that the plane went into the Southern Ocean, which I of course don't, so even in the best case scenario, they're really unlikely to find it. So they searched along this band called the Seventh Arc, and they didn't find it anywhere within a certain distance from that arc. You go back and you recalculate and you think, okay, well, if you assume that it went south, and all these people did assume that it did go south, how come we didn't find it? Where did we go wrong? What did the plane do that took us by surprise?
Mm.
And so the answer is either it flew a little further after sending that last signal than we thought, or it fell right where we calculated, but when it fell, it kind of slipped into maybe a crevasse, or it fell next to a cliff and it was like hidden. So the way that these side scan sonars work is they send out a sound signal, and then the computers turn that into almost like light. It's like your ultrasound. If you've ever looked at your pregnant wife's belly, or your own pregnant belly, I guess, if you're a woman, then you know what it's like. You can use sound to make an image. And so, but as you know, shining a light on the ocean bed, if there's a cliff or something, maybe it's hiding in the shadow of that cliff. And so there's a certain small percentage of this area that they search that they think, well, maybe we just got really, really unlucky and it fell into that shadow or that crevice. And so maybe it's in there. These are both very low probability eventualities. Scan the seabed is they either drag sonar equipment over the seabed and then do it in strips, kind of like mowing a lawn. And when you mow a lawn, you might miss a row. You could have like a strip of grass because you made the the stripes too wide apart.
Mm.
Um, if that's what maybe they're referring to, that they missed a stretch. When the officials initially failed in their search back in 2017, I think it was, and they said, look, we didn't find it, they considered the possibility that something like this had happened. And in the balance, they thought, well, that probably didn't happen. Like, we don't think that that's what happened. They're out of good ideas.
Yeah.
And so they're resorting to the best of the bad ideas that they have. I think it will be a waste of time unless after they fail for the third time, they finally kind of acknowledge that there's something wrong. Like we've really used up all of the ideas we have. We have no ideas left to explain what happened to the plane, and so maybe we need to question some of our basic assumptions.
Mm.
And of course, what I would say is here's a basic assumption that you can question. You have assumed that it's impossible for someone to conduct a cyber hack of this plane. And I have been talking to numerous cybersecurity experts who specialize in aviation who say that we have no reason to make that assumption. There's simply no basis for that. There's a well-known mechanism by which this plane could have been hacked and hijacked north. And to just sort of blindly cling to this belief in the face of no evidence at all, it seems to me reckless and rather ludicrous, frankly. They're the best of what's left over. I don't want to use the word sloppy seconds, but it's like the good stuff has all been taken. They've already
Mhm.
looked at all the high probability areas. There's no real they're kind of grasping at straws at this point. And so at this point, what I'm happy to say is yes, go search, do your best, but then admit what your failure has told you, because finding nothing is itself actually evidence. It's not failure. It's actually telling you something very positive about what happened to this plane. It's telling you where the plane didn't go. And so, having tried 3 times with increasingly small chances of success, at some point you should tell yourself that you're banging your head against the wall and ask yourself, where did we go wrong? Why? And the answer that people inevitably give is, well, the ocean's a big place. And it's just we just didn't look far enough. And to which I say, no, that's actually not the case. Everything has a margin of error. Your GPS has a certain margin of error. Your GPS margin of error might be a few meters. In the case of the Inmarsat data, it might be more on the hundreds of meters, or in the case of using the data to find the plane on the seabed, maybe it's off by 20 or 30 miles. But we've already searched 20 or 30 miles. It's really hard to explain how the plane could have gotten to a place beyond where you've already searched. And so it's time. I kind of want to lay down a wager. I want to say to people, if you're confident enough, remember, a little context. When the Malaysians called off the second search, they said, we will consider a proposal to continue the search if we have new and compelling evidence. So it has to be new, and it has to be something that like would give us some reason to think that it's true, or will show us where the plane is. And I don't think that either of those conditions has been met. Victor's area is not new. It's been known for a long time, and it's been known from the beginning. There's things that can be done. There's things that can be done to solve the mystery of MH370. Searching the seabed isn't one of them. It's not a productive thing that you can do to try to solve the mystery. The thing that you need to first of all, the to my mind, the reason that MH370 hasn't been found is that they haven't even really been grappling with it in a productive way. They need to have a serious panel of experts who come in with a blank slate and look at all of the information in detail. It's a very detailed and technically complicated case. They need to take it seriously. They need to think about they have huge tons of evidence, but they just need to really assess it in a scientific way. They've done it with partially, but they haven't done it enough. And they haven't fully assessed all the information that they've had. They need to overcome their mental blocks because the thing about this case is that if you look at it for a short amount of time, it looks like a certain thing. And if you look at it longer and in more depth, it looks like a different thing. And they only spent enough brain power to look at it a fairly short amount of time and concluded that it was the first thing, and they have never been able to open their minds enough to imagine that they might have been wrong, that there might be another thing that it could possibly be. And so they've really blinded themselves. At the same time, there's a simultaneous phenomenon happening, which is that um, people who don't know what they're talking about, there's well-intentioned people who don't know what they're talking about and have been promoting theories out of naivete, frankly. And then there's the third group, which is malicious actors like Richard Godfrey, who are deliberately spreading misinformation for whatever reason, who just want to sow confusion because they think it's fun or because they have some ulterior motive. I don't know why people do things like this. But this is a really important case, and it's very frustrating to me that we're not dealing with it like adults. We're not treating it like grown. Science is incredible. They can build an atomic bomb. They can put a man on the moon. They can certainly solve the case of MH370, but they're not doing anything like the Apollo project or the Manhattan project. They're not treating it with that level of seriousness.